Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking on a really fascinating mission. We're looking at the life of the Prophet Muhammad, but not in the usual textbook way.
Right.
We're using a major contemporary biography to really pull out the lessons,
Yeah.
the principles on ethics, on leadership, and on a really profound kind of spirituality.
And that's the whole mandate, isn't it? We're not just doing a chronology. This is an exploration of the principles that shaped everything.
Exactly.
I mean, the source we're using frames his life as this constant series of signs and trials, all designed by his educator, his rab, to prepare him.
To mold him for the mission ahead. So our deep dive is really focused on those universal ideas, things like humility, justice for the marginalized, critical thinking.
Themes that resonate way beyond the 7th century. And if you look at it through that frame of the rab, the one who nurtures, you see the lessons start immediately. His upbringing wasn't privileged. It was designed really to instill virtue through hardship.
Okay, let's start right there then. The formative years. How did those very early circumstances set the stage for everything that came later?
Well, his early life was just marked by fragility. He was born an orphan, which in Meccan society put him in a position of total vulnerability.
No safety net.
None. And then he was sent to live with the Banu Sad Bedouins in the desert for 4 years. That solitude, that exposure to the vastness of creation, it spurred this deep contemplation. The source really argues it taught him how fragile a human is against everything else.
And that experience, that feeling of being vulnerable and poor, that wasn't just a biographical detail, was it?
No, not at all. It became a foundational ethical command later on in the Quran.
Right.
It explicitly recalls his orphan status, and it reinforces this absolute principle. You must never, ever oppress the needy. His own experience made that personal.
And even before all that, the biography points to these little signs, these indicators of a unique destiny.
Yeah, it's interesting. His name, Muhammad, the praised one, was apparently quite uncommon. The source says it was announced to his mother in a vision. The point is, even before he was aware of it, others sort of sensed something was different.
Okay, let's pause on a really profound and complex detail from the source.
Yeah.
The split chest event. This happened when he was 4. It sounds almost mythological.
It does. It's described as the singular initiatory event. 2 men in white supposedly opened his chest, took out a black clot, and purified his heart.
So a spiritual purification.
A radical one. It's a theological statement that purification was necessary before the mission could even begin, and it gets recalled later during the night journey, which shows this continuity in his spiritual training.
What's so crucial, though, is that his moral character was fully formed and recognized long before any of this.
Absolutely essential. By his early 20s, Mecca knew him, not for his wealth, but for his integrity. They called him as Sadiq, the truthful.
And Al-Amin, the trustworthy.
Exactly. He had this innate moral compass that everyone recognized well before the divine mandate arrived.
And that reputation is what led directly to his marriage with Khadijah. The biography frames her as more than just a wife.
Oh, absolutely. She was a spiritual sign of God's support. She was
Wow.
this wealthy, sharp trader. And importantly, she initiated the marriage proposal.
She tested him first, right?
She did. She sent him on a commercial journey to Syria to test his honesty and his efficiency. He passed with flying colors. The source really elevates her, comparing her to Hagar and Ishmael for Abraham. She was his first convert, his rock.
So his character is established. What happens when that character meets the absolute shock of divine command? Which brings us to the cave of Hira.
Right. So he was already seeking. He would retreat to the cave, which wasn't unusual for the monotheists of the time, but this was an entirely unexpected confrontation.
The angel Gabriel appears.
Appears and commands him, read, 3 times. And Muhammad's response, I am not of those who read. It's so telling. It's a statement of his humanity,
Yeah.
Not defiance.
And the very first verse is revealed. Connect everything. Creator, knowledge, science, the pen.
That is the pivotal insight. It immediately establishes a relationship with God built on intelligence and reason, not just blind faith. It links the creator to the necessity of knowledge.
But the immediate result wasn't clarity or confidence. It was, well, profound turmoil.
Oh, it was devastating. The Fatra, this period of silence that followed, was crushing. He felt completely isolated, troubled. The source says he even contemplated suicide. He doubted everything he'd just experienced.
What does that kind of deep spiritual isolation teach someone?
It teaches humility. in a very practical way. The source argues the Rab engineered this silence to prevent him from taking ownership of the message.
So it wasn't his message to control.
Exactly. When Gabriel reappeared, it turned that despair into dependence. It hammered home that revelation came from God alone. He couldn't summon it or invent it.
And this was proven publicly later on.
Dramatically so. When his opponents, the Quraysh, challenged him with these really tough theological questions, another lapse in revelation occurred. A 14-day silence. He just had no answer for them.
Which, in a way, proved his authenticity.
Precisely. It showed everyone he was a messenger, not the source of the message.
Okay, that sets up this pattern of relying on principles over power. Let's dig into those ethical principles, starting with the Hilf al-Fudul, the Pact of the Virtuous.
Right, and this was a pre-Islamic pact. It was established by non-Muslims in Mecca for justice, for the common good, to protect the oppressed. And long after his mission started, the Prophet said he would still uphold it.
That's a huge statement.
It is. It's saying that universal human ethics have value, regardless of their source. It completely denies the idea that a pledge is only valid if it's strictly Islamic. It's about a common human dignity.
And that dedication to the powerless gets tested in a big way in that story with the blind man, Abdullah ibn Maktum.
Ah, yes. This is where you see the Rab correcting him right in the middle of his mission. He's trying to convince this powerful Quraysh chief, Walid, to convert.
Which would have been a huge strategic win for the community.
A massive win. And this poor blind man, who is already a believer, keeps interrupting him, asking for guidance. And Muhammad gets irritated. He sees it as an obstacle.
A terrible calculation in hindsight.
It was. And Revelation corrects him immediately. A whole chapter, a surah, comes down, basically chastising him for turning away from the poor man seeking truth to court the powerful one.
The lesson being that no political goal is worth more than the dignity of a single person.
That's exactly. The source puts it so bluntly. A powerless individual is worth 1,000 times more in the sight of God than the self-interested heart of a rich one. It's a radical lesson against compromise.
So let's talk about the Hijra, the exile to Medina. The biography insists this was more than just a physical escape.
It was. Fundamentally, it was an exile of the conscience. They were leaving behind the idols of Mecca power, money, status, because they couldn't practice their faith freely. They chose purity over possession.
And even in that moment of extreme danger, his ethical rigor is just astounding.
The detail about his debts, he's about to be assassinated, he has to escape, and he insists on paying for his camel and settling all his accounts. He wanted to be debtless. It's this profound commitment to personal integrity, even under threat of death.
And the guide he chooses for this journey.
Abdullah ibn Uraykot, a non-Muslim Bedouin. He was chosen purely for his character, his trustworthiness, and his skill as a guide. That choice says everything about trusting human qualities over shared creed.
That kind of inclusivity was there from the very beginning, wasn't it?
It was. The first converts were women, the young, the poor, slaves. Like Bilal. His story is incredible. Tortured under the desert sun, a boulder on his chest, and all he would repeat was, "He is one, he is one."
And you see people like Abu Bakr using their wealth specifically to free slaves like him.
Exactly. It reinforces that commitment to social justice right from the start.
Yeah.
And then you get the conversion of Umar.
The fiercest opponent.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
He set out to kill the prophet. His entire world shifts when he discovers his own sister has converted. He strikes her, sees her blood, and it just stops him in his tracks. Then he reads the Quranic verses they had, and that's it. He's overwhelmed.
And what did a conversion that dramatic teach the early believers?
Humility and self-doubt. It taught them that you can never, ever write someone off. Because God can change the hardest heart in an instant. Nothing is impossible. It was a huge reassurance.
Okay, this brings us to leadership and that idea of the internal struggle. Let's tackle the word jihad.
Right. It's a word that is deeply misunderstood. The biography is very clear. It literally means to strive or to struggle. Its first appearance in the Quran calls on believers to strive jihadim against opponents through the Quran.
So an intellectual and spiritual resistance.
Precisely. The physical armed resistance al-Qipal was only permitted much later and only as self-defense when their very survival was at stake.
And he himself made that critical distinction between the inner and outer struggle.
He did. Returning from a battle, he famously declared that they were returning from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad.
The struggle against the self.
The struggle against the ego. The daily fight against your own greed, your self-interest. That, he said, was the harder, more essential battle.
And this awareness of human weakness seems to have informed his teachings on moderation, too. He didn't demand perfection.
No, he was a realist. He hated seeing his companions feel guilty over natural human desires. He taught balance. There is a time for this devotion and a time for that rest, amusement. He'd repeat, "Woe to those who exaggerate."
This respect for their humanity then extends into how he governed. It wasn't an autocratic style at all.
Not even close. This is a critical point in the source. His companions knew there was a clear line. Revelation from God was absolute. You obey. But Muhammad's personal opinions on, say, military strategy or administration,
They were up for debate.
they were up for debate. They could be challenged. They could be improved.
Is there a good example of that?
The Battle of Badr is the iconic one. A companion, Hubab ibn al-Mundir, questions the Prophet's choice of where to set up camp. He argues it's a poor military position.
And Muhammad's reaction.
He listens. He hears the reasoning that they should be closer to the water wells, and he agrees immediately and moves the camp. He was constantly stimulating their intelligence, their independence.
You see that same ethical core in these small moments, too, the funeral procession.
It's so powerful. He stands up out of respect for a Jewish funeral procession passing by. When his companions are surprised, his answer is just so simple and profound.
Was this not a human soul?
Was this not a human soul? It cuts through everything. Respect for human dignity is universal, period.
And then at the end of his life, the farewell pilgrimage serves as this final, sweeping statement of principle.
Yes, on the Mount of Mercy, he's addressing, 144,000 people, and he declares that the old ways, the rivalries based on clan and power and profit, that time is over. The most honored person in God's sight is the most righteous, not the one from the noblest family.
A declaration of total equality.
Total equality and fraternity, the ultimate rejection of that tribal hierarchy.
And then his death becomes the final, immediate test of faith for everyone.
It's chaos. Umar, who loved him so intensely, is in complete denial. He's threatening to kill anyone who says the Prophet is dead. His grief is just. It's overwhelming his reason.
He's dependent on the physical person.
Totally. But then Abu Bakr arrives, and he's calm. He confirms the death, faces the crowd, and recites the verse that reframes everything for them.
O you people, let those who worship Muhammad know that Muhammad is now dead.
As for those who worshipped God, let them know that God is alive and does not die. And that single, calm statement just clears the air. It shifts the focus from the messenger back to the eternal. It was an act of incredible spiritual strength.
Which shows that the strongest personality, like Umar, can become fragile if they forget that ultimate dependence.
Exactly. It was the final lesson in real time.
So if we pull all of this together, if we synthesize this whole deep dive, the single theme that just keeps emerging is the necessity of humility.
That's it, precisely. From being an orphan to the doubt in the caves to the reprimand about the blind man, all the way to his death. Every trial was a lesson from the Rab teaching the community to rely on God alone and to always acknowledge their own human fragility.
So for you, the listener, what his life demonstrates is that the most difficult struggle isn't the one outside. It's the inner one, that greater jihad of just living justly and coherently with high principles.
And we'll leave you with a thought from the source material. God reminded the prophet, "Verily never will God change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves." So consider how that ultimate reliance on inner transformation, rather than external power or allies, applies to the challenges you face today. The ultimate test is always internal.